Do you remember the time when Stewie, wanting to help Native Americans in the 17th century, caused Brian's permanent elimination, resulting in one of the saddest and most emotional scenes in cinema? It all starts with Brian and Stewie desperately running from armed Native Americans on a truck, as they changed the past by giving weapons to the Native Americans in the 17th century, which led them to eliminate anyone who was different from them. Now, the Native Americans rule the world. Brian complains and argues with Stewie, but Stewie promises him that when they return to the present, they will never do time travels again. The problem is that Stewie's machine is broken, so they quickly search for Stewie's house in that dimension at night and find his whole family from that reality, but dressed very peculiarly. Eventually, they secretly enter Stewie's room from that dimension and quickly travel to the past, taking away the weapons they had previously given to the Native Americans, and swiftly leave the place. When they return to their dimension, they find everything has been fixed. As Stewie promised Brian that they would never do time travels again, Stewie decides to destroy the machine and sells its valuable parts on eBay. Later, Stewie decides to play hockey with Brian in the street, but Stewie says he needs an extra hockey stick, so he goes back home while Brian stays in the street. Suddenly, a car appears and hits Brian, causing the worst. Panicked, they rush Brian to the vet, who takes him in, and they have to wait in the waiting room for a long time. Later, the doctor arrives and tells them that Brian is too injured and has only a few hours left to live, and there's no way to save him. The whole family gathers to say goodbye to him, leading to one of the saddest scenes in all of cinema. Each family member looks at him and says kind words while crying. Finally, Brian looks at them and says that they have given him a wonderful and dignified life and that he loves them. And with his last words, Brian goes to play poker in heaven with Scooby-Doo and Top Cat. This situation makes the family sad, and they all hug and look at Brian for the last time. The following days, Stewie becomes very upset because he was the one who had the idea to play that day, and he was the one who destroyed the time machine, so he can't undo all of this. But minutes later, he thinks he can build another time machine, which makes him happy. Unfortunately, the vendor who sold the parts and materials for the time machine no longer has them, so creating the machine again is impossible. The next day, they bury Brian, and everyone cries and says kind words at the funeral. The following days, the family looks for another dog at the shelter to fill the void left by Brian, and they find Vinny, a younger and fatter dog than Brian. Vinny quickly gets along with everyone, even with Peter's friends, especially Quagmire. However, Stewie doesn't like the new dog and wants to get rid of him. But in the end, they get along when Vinny finds Stewie crying, and Stewie confesses that he misses Brian and doesn't want anyone to replace him. Vinny tells him that he's not a replacement for Brian, but a new dog who will take care of them. Someone with a new personality who will be there for the whole family. In the end, they hug, showing that Stewie accepts him as the new member of the family.
And then another